Welcome to Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm, where we trade in personal finance advice for entertaining conversations about money. And I very well may have had my life changed in a previously recorded episode by a man named Samson. Welcome, world, to yet another episode of Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm, where we trade in personal finance advice for entertaining conversations about money. Malcolm, another day, another dollar, as we always say. How are you doing today, sir?
Not bad, man. I'm feeling good. The summer's coming to an end. That means the 90-degree days are finally over.
They're numbered.
I can actually stop having to take 3 showers a day. In some instances, I'm happy.
Indeed. You know why I can't take 3 showers a day anymore?
Why?
Because now I'm paying for water in my new house. So, that discourages me from taking so many showers.
I'm not ready for you to turn into an old man. But I feel like that's all our conversations are going to be now. You complaining about housing costs and little things that, you got to go to Home Depot on Sunday for. I think that's your future.
That's my new future.
I didn't think you could get any older as a young man, but I think you're about to double down.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Well, on this episode of Manage Your Damn Money, we have an interesting conversation at hand, something we've never talked about on the show before, the cost of raising kids in America and Manage Your Damn Money's unique entry into parenthood. So that's actually the conversation that we're talking about today, and we have like a big reveal a little bit later in the show.
Do we have balloons?
We don't have any balloons in studio today.
Not a real reveal.
Indeed. But before, as we do on every show, it is now time for headlines. Aretha Franklin died without a will. This was an August 2018 piece on wealthmanagement.com by David H. Lennox. Deeply private in life, Aretha Franklin's estate will be laid bare for all to see, as according to court documents, she died without having a will or trust in place, Malcolm. Documents filed by her 4 sons in Oakland County's probate court on the Tuesday that we're referring to acknowledge the absence of a will and name themselves as parties interested in her estate. There's no indication that any of the parties are in conflict, and at least for the moment, the family seems to be on the same page, which is vital when a potentially large estate comes up. Franklin's exact net worth is unknown, but it's estimated at roughly $80 million and includes the rights to a number of her hit songs. So that being said, even if family strife is avoided, the complete lack of wealth transfer planning on Franklin's part will likely result in Uncle Sam taking a huge tax bite out of her, ultimate wealth, which is pretty unfortunate. And in an interview with the Detroit Free Press, Franklin's longtime entertainment lawyer, Don Wilson, said the estate lawyer is David Bennett, doesn't paint a particularly optimistic picture. I was after her for a number of years to do a trust, he said. It would have expedited things and kept them out of probate and kept things private, Wilson said. I just hope Franklin's estate doesn't end up getting hotly contested. Anytime they don't leave a trust or will, there always ends up being some kind of fight. As we know, Malcolm, recently the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin herself, passed away.
Right.
And we've talked about this on the show. We have a previous episode somewhere about the value of talking to your parents about passing. So she left without a planning for her demise. How frequent of an occurrence is this in the financial planning world that you work in every day?
Unfortunately, it happens a lot more than it should.
Okay.
I want to remain as respectful as I possibly can because
Absolutely.
These are clients of mine that I'm presumably talking about. Names will be kept secret to protect the innocent.
Indeed.
But essentially, this is not an uncommon occurrence.
Okay.
And kind of in the point that you made about the entertainment lawyer who said he spent multiple years trying to convince her that this was something she needed to do, I find myself in that position a lot more than I feel like I should.
Okay.
And a lot more than I'm comfortable, honestly, a lot of times. But I feel like, if you're paying me as a professional to help you plan for your financial future, it's incumbent upon me to help you make good financial decisions in the future after you're gone too, right? And so I do what I can to nudge people in the right direction and to have this conversation and to try and spur some, this story, for example, I emailed out to quite a few people after I read it, shaking my head at the screen and just, And it spurs some conversation.
Okay.
I hope it does spur some action as well. But it's unfortunate, and I think what I've finally taken resolve to is people just don't want to really have to talk about them dying.
Okay.
And unfortunately, things like insurance, life insurance, and estate planning, wills, trusts, that kind of thing,
All involved.
it's a whole conversation around you dying.
Right.
And so, if I sit down and really talk to somebody about what's going to happen after I'm dead, then I have to acknowledge the fact that I'm going to die.
Right.
And that kind of kills the conversation.
Sure.
Pardon the pun, but like it stops right there.
Right.
So that's kind of the challenge in scenarios like this.
How, not that we're psychiatrists at all, but we can certainly play one on TV because we are on TV. How can people like get past the discomfort with talking about death alongside their financial planning? Like, what are some things that people can do to kind of distance themselves from the emotional part of that?
Well, what I try my best to do, and in some cases it works, is to tap into people's inherent disdain for the IRS.
Okay.
And I make it as much a conversation about us making sure the IRS doesn't get a hold of your money after you're gone
Right.
as I possibly can. And say, look, you spent an entire 30, 40, in Aretha Franklin's case, 50-year career accumulating these assets. Right. So your time, your effort, your blood, sweat, tears, presumably, to accumulate these assets, as soon as you pass away, if you don't do this right, it's going to roll to your kids, but the gap between it going to you and your kids, the IRS is standing there with a net catching as much of it as they possibly can.
Right.
And I think the visual of that usually gets people enraged enough to say, if nothing else, I don't want the IRS getting their hands on my money.
Right.
So I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to put pen to paper and start to put things in place.
And quickly, what's the difference, before we go to our first music break, what's the difference between having a trust and a will and that happening versus it just being left out there for the IRS and for other people to pick at? Like, what's the
so
difference between those two
dying
things?
without a will or a trust, the technical term for it is dying intestate. Mm-hmm. So if you die intestate, there's a whole court in the state that you live in called probate court that their job is to value your estate.
Right.
So they go through your assets. They're picking through, your house. They're picking through your cars and jewelry and everything else, and determining what the value of those things are. So in Aretha's case, she's got a whole catalog of music that's got to be valued. It's got to be determined how much of it tax can be applied to it based on characteristics in the IRS code, all kind of stuff. That could take a year, 2 years. Right. Also, probate is a public process. Right. So if I was curious, I could go on, California or Michigan. I can't remember where she actually finally lived. But if I go on the state's website and say, I want to know what Aretha Franklin's kids got in the estate settlement, I can see online. I could go to Prince, for example, as another person died without a will. I can go online to Minnesota courthouse records and find out what he left his family. They're still fighting over those assets, but I could go online and see what they're getting. Right. Those are two things that make people really listen up when you start to talk about having proper will, trust, titling of assets, those kind of things.
And the difference between that and what happens when you do have a trust and a will in place?
So when you do have a trust and a will in place, and even name beneficiaries on certain accounts, that is a step a lot of times people miss. When you do, it allows those things to transfer directly to those people who you intended them to, without having that stop in the middle where the probate court is standing there with their net saying, give us our share first, and then we'll let the rest of it pass to your heirs.
I got it. What should millennials be thinking as it pertains to themselves and to their parents, with this being the conversation?
Having these conversations as soon as possible while people still remember where things are and what they are and all those kind of things are helpful. You don't even necessarily have to go into detail on how much money we're talking about or what kind of assets you hold, say, in your investment portfolio or whatever. I just need to know that it exists and who is the person who manages it, so that I know who I'm supposed to call if and when maybe you're incapacitated, right? Like if you're you get sick along the way, things like that it's gonna fall on me, but you make my life, extremely complicated as your child, your heir, if I don't even know where to begin. So just having open conversation with your family about, where do I start? Where's the safe deposit box that holds all the answers? Just tell me that. That could be, a lot.
Indeed, indeed. Well, some lessons to learn from the passing of the Queen of Soul. We want to remind people you can always catch past episodes of Manage Your Damn Money on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and Spotify. We ask that you please leave us a review there. Let us know how we're doing. Give us 5 stars so more people can catch our show. And if you have a question for Malcolm for his Malcolm's Money Minute, send it to us, info@manageyourdamnmoney.com. And you can also catch us on social media. My handle is @MYDM with a 1 on the end. Malcolm, how about you?
At Malcolm on Money.
And you can always catch us on Facebook, facebook.com/manageyourdamnmoney. This is MYDM with Ben and Malcolm. We will be right back. Welcome back to Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm, where today's conversation at hand is the cost of raising kids in America and Manage Your Damn Money's unique entry into parenthood. In a recent show, Malcolm and I shared life milestones of buying and selling a home. In this episode, it is my pleasure and also my dread to share with you that my wife and I are pregnant.
Congratulations, brother.
With triplets.
With triplets.
With triplets. So,
3 babies.
3 babies.
At the same time.
At the same time.
Okay. Are you going to name them all the same thing?
I don't know. So let us exhale. This is a real true story. Childcare, food, clothing,
right,
education, snacks, and did I mention childcare? Please send help. Hashtag.
You have a GroupMe link yet? I mean, not GroupMe, a GoFundMe link yet?
Not yet, but
okay.
We may need to look into that.
You may need to.
I have a hashtag for you. Hashtag I will work for food. So this is the first time we're talking about it, Malcolm. We've known this for a while now.
Right.
We've known for several weeks. We went several weeks without sharing it because, it's pregnancy.
Right.
But now I'm sharing it on the show. My wife and I are pregnant with 3 damn kids. And now I see the irony that in creating a show called Manage Your Damn Money, it was really just for me because that's what I'm going to have to do with my current situation. But yeah, crazy stuff, man.
Have you guys started any kind of preparation, or has it still hasn't washed over you? You're still...
So I'm still like in a daze. I will say that, how like old people seem to be always really, in a crazy way, really spiritually connected. Like grandma's like, baby, I'm just leaning on the Lord.
Oh, yeah.
That way, right? Now I'm starting to really understand.
You're becoming more spiritual.
I'm starting to understand that sentiment. It's like, yeah, because that's the only way that this is going to work out.
So triplets make you have that coming to Jesus moment.
Even more so.
Okay.
Absolutely. But real quick, so I have a list of things that I think I need to do in preparation for being the father of triplets and being able to afford it. It was a top list of things Ben will have to do to afford having triplets. Number one, stock up on cool clothes now because I won't buy new clothes for myself for the next 10 years following their birth.
10 years?
Maybe more, right?
25.
Okay.
Let's.
Okay, that's fine. Number two, turn in my iPhone 5S in exchange for one of Sprint's lone flip phone options.
See, I would think the other way around.
What's that?
Get the coolest, best phone you can possibly get right now, the iPhone 10, whatever, and hug that thing as tight as you can because you're going to have it for a long time.
Okay, indeed. Number three, giving up my gym membership and replacing that workout with running in place in the garage at home.
Okay.
So that might be a thing. Also, number four, I can swear off eating, opting instead for a water and air diet.
That supermodel diet.
Indeed. And then number five, I can compete in hot dog eating contests.
Okay. For the food.
Obviously.
Not for the check, but for the food.
For both.
Got it.
Okay. Number six, never introducing my kids to ice cream, Happy Meals, or other fun stuff kids like. Instead, brainwashing them to believe ramen noodles and playing with empty boxes is a luxury experience.
Sounds like a cult, but all right.
I'm with that.
Won't report you just yet.
Number seven, and the final item, I can just sell my body, which is that's an option as well.
To science, I hope you mean.
I don't know. There's lots of kinds of selling your bodies, but anyway. So that's my list. And then I actually posted something right before the show asking people like what we should cut out for our budget. It's a whole lot of comments. So I'm gonna try to. Somebody said everything in moderation instead of eating out multiple times a week. Save money for weekly date nights. Explore the U.S., Canada, or anything in driving distance for vacation rather than pricey foreign trips. Pricey foreign trips are done. In the end, you'll be just fine and adjust to everything that pops up.
That's optimistic.
That's very optimistic. What else was said here? Don't cut the wine budget. Y'all may need an increase in it. And then what else? Do a list of your current expenses and see where it's going. I would say cut out the cable and go streaming instead, which we talked about on this show before. Going out less frequently, eating out and buying, coffee out, all those things have to go. Look for things you need on sale, and don't be afraid to ask for help so you guys can get enough sleep. That's true. And there's a whole lot of other comments. If you want to see all of them, it's a blue graphic on at MYDM1 on Instagram. But Malcolm, how did you feel when I told you that we were having triplets?
My honest reaction?
Yeah.
Better you than me. Man, I cannot imagine.
Right.
But I mean, so there's probably some advantages to having three at one time.
Sure.
Especially if, like, getting married, you guys said, I think we should have about 3 kids.
I was shooting for 1.5, but
okay,
anyway.
well, sometimes you get double what you ask for if you pray hard enough.
Indeed, that's what they say.
You got an abundance of blessing.
As
there you
they
go.
say.
In that scenario, or that there's a finite amount of time to when you're going to have kids in the house and get them out of the house, right? Like my sister and I are 4.5, almost 5 years apart.
Oh, wow.
So there's a big gap to cover for my
Right.
parents, having 2 kids in the house the whole time. Things like that, I guess, are the advantages that you end up with. Social media is a really big thing right now. So if you can figure out how to capitalize on that with a happy, smiling family of triplets in photos, and
hopefully our kids are cute.
maybe you get clothing stipends from fashion magazines that want to feature you and things like that. There's probably ways to position that to exploit your display.
I know what you're saying.
Display. That's the word I was looking for.
I know what you're saying.
Because college isn't cheap.
Right.
So let them work their way through college up until about 5. Pay for it now, and then
Indeed. Well, that is the situation, and I'm happy to share it with everybody who listens and watches this show. Our first story that we pulled for this topic, the cost of raising a child in America has soared. It's a price tag fit for a prince, and this was an April 2018 piece on MarketWatch.com by Heidi Steinhauer. The article reads, today, roughly 1 in 5 women in the U.S. does not have children, thanks in part to this decline in birth rate. For the first time in U.S. history, there may soon be more elderly people than children. The cost of having children in the U.S. has grown exponentially since the 1960s, when the government first started collecting data on childhood expenditures. Between 2000 and 2010, the cost shot up by 40%. As of 2015, American parents spend, on average, $233,000 on child costs from birth until the age of 17. not including college.
Man.
I feel like I've seen numbers bigger than that. This number covers everything from housing and food to childcare and transportation costs. The spike in cost has broad implications affecting everything from demographic trends and human capital to family consumption. Some items that cost money when you're having kids, in my case, or a kid, which is most people's normal case, giving birth. Expenses for a delivery can range anywhere between $3,000 to upwards of $37,000 per child, and that's for a normal vaginal delivery, and from $8,000 to $70,000 if a C-section or special care is needed. And if you have like a premature baby, sometimes it can go up even further from that because of like NICU charges.
To put that in perspective, $70,000 is an entry-level Tesla. So just to deliver that kid cost about the amount of an entry-level Tesla.
There you go.
That's serious.
There
Shows
you
you where my brain still is thinking about
Clearly.
life things.
Also, child care and activities. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services deems child care affordable if no more than 10% of the family's income is used for that purpose. However, parents currently spend 9 to 22% of their total annual income on child care per child. American families will spend on average $500 to $1,000 per season on extracurricular or sports activities for each of their children. For me, multiply that by 3. Child care has become one of the most expensive costs that a family bears. In fact, in many cities, child care can cost more than average rent, which is definitely true here in the Washington, D.C. metro area.
Yeah.
This is a particular challenge for low-income families who don't often make more than the minimum wage. So the cause, also some causes of the lower birth rate. Researchers at Pew argue that the recent decrease in birth rate has much to do with the Great Recession of 2008. So millennials still suffering from that experience, as it does with the increase of the women who are not willing to sacrifice their careers for family, which is also a very true phenomenon. Mothers are often pushed out of careers or they opt out based on the high demands of balancing family and work life. Malcolm, this article reports child rearing to cost an average of $233,000 in total. And like I said, I've seen numbers that are even bigger than that. What does this make you feel, sir, not yet a parent, about the prospect of having kids?
I consider that $230,000 to be a down payment on my long-term care as an elder person.
Okay.
So
there you go.
Probably costs somewhere around $250,000 to $400,000 depending on how long you live.
That's true.
To have long-term care.
Right.
I think that basically that's the down payment on me having somebody to come take care of me when I'm an old person and can't do it myself.
That is such a glass half full perspective. Thank you for that, sir.
No problem. You got 3 times the probability that somebody will be there to help take care of you as an older man than you are now.
That makes me feel like filled up, sir. So thank you for that little bit of sunshine on this day. So do you think that people, especially millennials, are totally aware of the cost of having kids?
Yes, that's why the population is decreasing. You got people like me who are in their 30s who are like, I'll revisit this at 40.
Right.
Like, because you just now finally get to a point where you can afford to take care of yourself.
Right.
And now you've got somebody else who's financially dependent on you.
Right.
That's why you see so many millennials that carry their dog in a carrier across their chest and push them in strollers and spoon feed them and stuff, because they're basically raising a kid for like 1/5 of what it actually costs to raise a kid. And then dogs die 7 times faster at a rate 7 times faster than a human person. So if I decide I don't want to send this dog off to college, I just have to wait him out. The kids, you don't really have that option. Right. So it's a whole different cost-benefit trade-off thing working there with millennials.
Right.
And I think people might be making the right decision with those what are they, dog parents that people call themselves. I heard somebody the other day, this is completely like off the topic, but I heard somebody the other day describe what they did for a living as being a stay-at-home dog mom. And all I could do was shake my head. And I felt like such an old man because I was like enraged. I was like, go get a job, slacker. Like that was in my brain, but I held it to myself. I ordered my sandwich from Chick-fil-A and then went on about my business.
Can't move it.
But I don't get it.
Oh, that is hilarious. Well, that's a bit about dog parents and soon to be parents of triplets. I want to remind people you can always catch past episodes of our show, Manage Your Damn Money, on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and Spotify. Of course, please leave us a review or send me some money in the mail, whatever you want to do. That helps more people catch our show. Of course, if you have a question for us or you want us to cover a particular topic, send it to us, info@manageyourdamnmoney.com. And of course, you can always catch us and this whole triplet thing going on social media. My handle is @MYDM with a 1 on the end. What about you, Malcolm?
@Malcolm on money, no triplets.
No triplets. And you can always catch us on Facebook, facebook.com/manage your damn money. This is MYDM with Ben and Malcolm. We're going to take a quick music break. We will be right back. Welcome back to Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm, where we are covering today's conversation at hand, the cost of raising kids in America, and Manage Your Damn Money's unique entry into parenthood, which we've already shared, which is the fact that I and my wife are having triplets, which is crazy. So anyway, the cost of raising kids in America. The Economic Policy Institute outlines the cost of childcare across America. I just went into this study. It's like something on their website, and you could put in your city, and it'll tell you what the average cost of childcare is. The first one I pulled, of course, was for where we live, which is the Washington, D.C. area. The average annual cost of infant care in Washington, D.C. is $22,000. That equals to about $1,800 per month.
Don't just blow by that.
That's like rent.
$22,000.
That's tuition.
That's a Nissan Altima.
Hold on. I can do this too. Hold on. No, I can't. That's more than in-state tuition.
You're still thinking about it in terms of school. That's not a concern of mine right now. You're facing down the barrel of 3 college tuitions, and so I understand that's what's on your mind. I'm thinking about the next car I'm gonna buy after this one.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
very good. But yeah, that's a crazy number. 18. That is legit. People pay $1,800 a month and less for rent in different places. And I've heard of people complaining about child care costs in the D.C. area. You can make a small fortune running like a child care center with like a decent, facility and decent practices in terms of educating kids. You can make a killing.
This is why I'm moving to Middle America.
No, this is why.
Nashville, Tennessee. Here I come.
Okay.
I hear it's nice this time of year.
Indeed. And if you're wondering, Washington, D.C. is ranked first out of all 50 states and the District of Columbia for the most expensive health care. So lucky for us, we're living in the most expensive place to have kids, Malcolm. That's wonderful. California, the average annual cost of infant care in California is $11,000. $800. That's $985 per month.
That's half as much as here. You might want to go back home.
I can't deal with that traffic, so that's a no. California is ranked 11th out of 50 states in the District of Columbia. And then Arizona, RIP to John McCain. The average cost of infant care in Arizona is $9,437 a year, which equals to $786 per month. And then finally, just to give it some scale, we talked about DC and California, which are places that things are expensive. I took it down to Louisiana. The average annual cost of infant care in Louisiana is a little bit more manageable at $5,700 and some change, which equals to about 470 so bucks per month. What are those numbers in
So
terms
can your kids commute back and forth to you through the course of?
Can they drive to daycare is what you're asking me?
Basically,
Maybe
like,
they
can I
catch an
FedEx
Uber.
them overnight each day on my way to work, and
Right.
then they just put a return envelope and send them back at the end of the.
Right.
I'll come
something.
visit them on the weekends.
Just leave them.
Because Louisiana is looking more and more like the place to be.
Indeed. So it's interesting because there's so much comedy in my situation.
There is, man. I'm glad you can laugh about it because, you know, on your way to becoming a stay-at-home dad, this is like the cathartic release
Absolutely.
of, you know, I never really imagined you as the barefoot and pregnant type, but this is like you have a very good outlook on how this is gonna impact you, and so I have to at least tip my cap to you. You know, not but so much because you're not the one that actually has to birth these babies,
Right.
But at least to some degree, because you know you'll be there too.
Indeed. So here's another list that we created: unexplored and unpopular in some cases considerations for saving money with kids. The first one, Malcolm, this is the one I actually like. Multi-generational households. The Pew Research Center defines a multi-generational household as one with grandparents and grandchildren, or with two or more adult generations living in it. The trend since 1980 is more people living in multi-generational homes and a higher number of multi-generational households. In 2016, the most recent Pew numbers, 20% of Americans, that's 64 million people, lived in a multi-generational home, and that was according to an article pulled from the Washington Post in April of 2018. The benefits, Malcolm, as I see it, of multi-generational households: pooling resources and Social Security checks, the potential for built-in childcare, especially as kids become more independent, like they can pour themselves a bowl of cereal, and all grandma has to do is make sure they don't like walk off, you know.
So is this like a subtweet show at your in-laws?
Moving on, and of course you get the family bonding across generations, which is a cool thing. And I think one thing, we're sold in America to do everything by yourself. And I think one thing that I admire about, especially people who are from immigrant communities, they a lot of times have multi-generational households. And it's like they can pool their resources.
And that's the norm.
That's the norm.
It's not like a sign that you're a failure.
Right.
If you live with your grandparents and your parents.
Yet in America, it's the exact flip where you haven't made it until you're living on your own and paying every last bill by yourself.
Something to be said about consumerism and capitalism being the main drivers for.
Crazy thing. Also, another option, having fewer children. My mother was one of 11 kids. That's a true story. Which makes this episode of me griping about the cost of childcare a little bit ridiculous.
Right.
But for those of us who grew up wanting large families, you might want to reconsider and scale some of those dreams back. Or you can do the opposite and have a ton of kids and make the oldest one watch the rest of them, which is also an option.
That doesn't sound like fun for somebody.
Also, this is an interesting one, Malcolm, that I think in DC is really popular. Nanny shares, which is the concept of for those who have friends or neighbors with kids who are of a similar age, you pool your resources to do a nanny share where you hire a nanny or someone to come watch the kids, and then they watch everyone's kids, but it's like half the cost of what it normally would be.
Yeah, I don't think I'm the nanny type.
You're not a nanny type?
No.
You're just going to let the kids, what are you going to do?
I don't know, but I just don't see me as the guy that when people are asking me questions about like my weekend,
Right.
I'm like, oh, well, the nanny had the kids. You know,
It's funny, I feel like you are that person.
No, I was a latchkey kid to the opposite side of, I mean, my parents had us in a million different activities to keep us busy.
Okay.
So they could also know, like, here's the time block that they're busy doing things.
Right.
But, like, like, I was out in the neighborhood. I had a key to the house, could let myself in.
Right.
I know how to take the metro like the back of my hand. I didn't need a nanny.
We're going to revisit this conversation, sir. I promise.
I'm telling you, the metro is going to raise my kids. That's what's going to happen.
Okay, very good. Another item where you could save money on being a parent, becoming a stay-at-home parent, though the cost to career potential can be exponential, when the math is right, becoming a stay-at-home parent is an option many choose. Do note, exiting a career to raise children will have an impact on current and future wages, because if you take a break from the workplace, you theoretically will be quote-unquote penalized
Right.
for the gap in employment time, and that's just the way it is in our capitalist America. Another thing that you can do, which is interesting, and this was a list created by myself and some folks that were in my house, including my mother-in-law, a friend named Shannon, and my wife, of course. Shipping the kids off in the summer months. Do you have relatives who could manage the cost of having extra kids at their house for the summer? You might want to inquire about this as a cost savings and family enrichment activity. So like ship them off to your rich or doing pretty well uncle who could use some company. Maybe like we'll send them to Malcolm's house. I don't know.
Until you snuck that one in there on me. I was gonna say until they get there and then see all the wonderful stuff that
That's fine.
Aunt Sheila and Uncle Brian had, and then like my house isn't like this. Like
Right.
there's so many things that I didn't learn that I didn't have as a kid until I went to other people's houses, and I was like, this is what people live like. What is this? What is this cable thing that people are talking about? Like, where did you get all these channels?
Right.
Your kids are gonna be severely disappointed when it's time to come back home.
That's hilarious.
And they're like, how am I supposed to do this now?
Right. I was definitely the kid missing out on Nickelodeon because we didn't have cable growing up. So.
Dude, preaching to the choir.
Right.
Like,
Cool. Another one that we listed, hand-me-downs. Don't be bougie. You can accept hand-me-downs in all
I
forms,
know all about that
shapes,
hand-me-down life.
and sizes. From used strollers to used clothes, connecting with those who have had kids before can be a huge money saver, especially in the beginning. And this is another interesting one that we came up with. Moving to lower cost areas with good public schools.
Mm-hmm.
We all love living in places we live, but would you consider moving to a locale with lower cost but great public schools? Would you move from Washington, D.C. to Flower Mound, Texas?
I've never heard of Flower Mound,
I
Texas.
have cousins that live in Flower Mound. Those were the houses I was going to, like, what is all this? But anyway, this can also save you thousands on general cost of living, because not only are you living in a place with like lower property taxes, lower cost of living,
no state tax in
no
Texas.
state taxes.
Texas
right.
is on my list though, so no, I'm not. My list of all the states you couldn't pay me enough money to move to, Texas is on that list. So no.
Okay. Well, those are places you could possibly get a good education for your kids by not having to pay for private school. So that's one other thing. Another, engaging low-cost, no-cost activities. Counties all across the U.S. provide low-cost and no-cost activities for kids. You have to do some research, but there are things for kids to do. Summer camps at parks, library programs, and the like. Malcolm, I grew up at Loma Alta and Farnsworth Park in Altadena, California.
I don't know what language you're speaking. What are all these places?
That's a city right at the base of the foothills in California, in the city I grew up in. But both Loma Alta and Farnsworth Park, I did like summer programs, and it was like, you go there all day, and it's like, $65 a week. I don't know what that would translate now for.
You make $5 a day, and you feel like you're accomplished as a teen counselor.
Right.
But in reality, it's just daycare level 3.
Right, yes.
Where you're still being watched by actual adults, but you feel like you're empowered to do something, but your parents are like, yes.
And that was the exact life I lived. I went from being a summer camper to being a junior counselor to being an actual paid. I still have like money in a IRA of some kind from LA County. It's like $1,000 in there from working for Farnsworth Park and Loma Alta Park. So put your kids in low-cost activities like that. You might have to do some research. Then finally, Malcolm, and I feel like you would do this, make your kids get a job.
That should have been number 1. Should have been number 1.
When your kids hit that legal working age, and it could be anywhere between 15,
15.
maybe 14 if you get like a permit. Right. When they get to that age, you might encourage them or even mandate securing a job to cut down on having to give them money, which could save you money as a parent because you're paying for everything else.
I joke, but I actually did like have a quote unquote job.
Right.
I don't remember exactly how old I was initially, but like I did all kind of random stuff. Like I would wash people's cars on my street.
Right.
So you don't have to be that old for your parents to trust you on your street washing cars or cutting grass or raking leaves.
Didn't you have a fledgling mowing lawn
Dude,
business?
I had a legitimate lawn care service where people were like calling the house, leaving messages like, and I was like, you got to take a number and schedule an appointment because I'm booked, today and tomorrow and Friday. Like literally, like this isn't even a joke. So
no one's surprised by this.
I really do feel like I was like selling all kind of stuff, candy at school. I would sell lunch at lunchtime, like all kind of stuff, to the point where if my kids are like, oh, I don't feel like it, I don't have any sympathy for you. Like you are okay with the level of brokenness that you're gonna have as a person with no job,
right?
Because I just don't see me as the allowance type parent either.
Wow.
We'll see when we get there. But the more important question as we close out this show, when are we going minivan shopping? Because I want to be there to see this level of like defeated man wash over you as you sign on the dotted line for this Honda Odyssey. I need to be in attendance. I want to be in that number, as they say in my new home state of Louisiana. I want to be there for this.
Listen, bro, I have too much swag to go down like that.
Hey, just get the one with like the swiveling seats and the heated and air conditioned seats, the captain's chairs, and it'll hold your ball cap. Like they make some pretty swanky minivans, man.
Oh my gosh! And as we exit Malcolm's Comedy Hour, I want to remind people you can catch past episodes of Manage Your Damn Money on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and Spotify. Please, please, please leave us a review. Tell us what I can do to raise triplets on a budget. Anything. If you have a question that you want us to cover or something you want Malcolm to cover on his Malcolm's Money Minute, send us the question, info@manageyourdamnmoney.com. You can also catch us on Instagram or Twitter. What's your handle, Malcolm?
At Malcolm on Money.
And of course, you can follow me and my journey into parenthood on at MYDM1, and that's both on Twitter and Instagram. And of course, you can catch us facebook.com/manageyourdamnmoney. Thanks to our partners here at Montgomery Community Media for yet another amazing and interesting show forecasting what parenthood will be like. Until next time, be good with your money.
Peace.
Peace.